So we go from Amherst, South Amherst, and in the apple grove, and we travel a couple thousand miles north into Quebec's northern BOREAL. Please welcome Matt Jacobson, who is from the Pew Charitable Trust and their environment group, and we'll talk about making conservation.
Unlike most of the other presenters, I'm neither an entrepreneur nor an artist, and I work for a big institution. I don't work on my own, but what I work on is making policy to protect something that already exists, in this case, some of the last large intact forest ecosystems in the world, and I do this for the Pew Environment Group. One of our missions is to identify and protect the last large intact ecosystems, and now I'm working up on the boreal forest of Canada, which is one of the largest forest ecosystems left in the world, 1.2 billion acres of intact forests. Before that, I started working for Pew during the Clinton administration, working on a project to protect the last intact forest ecosystems on the U.S. national forests, and then trying to stop the Bush administration from rolling back those protections that we got during the Clinton administration, which was actually even harder to do. We protected 60 million acres of roadless areas on the national forest system during the Clinton administration. Kept it in place during the Bush administration, and during that time we were doing some studies of where were the last remaining intact tracts of lands on the entire planet. We were involved in this study, and the green areas are the areas that have the least human impact left in the world. That's all of the ecosystems everywhere, and then if you reduce it just to forest ecosystems, you get Canada, you get the Amazon, you get the Congo, and you get Russia, the Russian boreal there. And we decided that of those, really the one that had the most political opportunity to make real substantive policy changes would be the Canadian boreal. And when you're working in an ecosystem that large, you're working on a system that it's not just museum pieces, kind of like we have here, the last intact tracts. You're working on a dynamic system that actually has all the pieces intact, predator-prey relationships, and even Aboriginal communities that are still living and subsisting off the land as they have for thousands of years. And we're working in partnership with the Aboriginal communities on land use planning to protect the areas of intact boreal forest. So this is really disorienting for Americans. First of all, Canada's another country. It's not great. Can you get that? So, Canada's another country, and it's not just a gray area on top of the map. It's made up of all of these different provinces, and each province has its own government, and it's really big. You look at Quebec alone, and it's about the same size as Alaska, and I oversee all of our work in Quebec. I also work in some of the other provinces too, but mostly in Quebec. And Quebec, like I said, is tremendously large. They also speak French there. So for me, it's really intense, working as a forest campaigner for many, many years. And then it was like, oh, you think you're good at this? Try it in French. Kind of like getting to the next level in a video game and they throw all these new challenges at you. It's been quite a thing. So can we go back to the slide of just the map of Canada? Yeah, that one. So each province has its own government, and they report to the federal government, and the federal government reports to who? The Queen of England, that's true. So the highest person in all of the Canadian government would be the Queen of England, and each of the provinces has their own government, and we have to work on a province-by-province basis. But the thing that's great about working on an area that's huge and intact is rather than fighting over each last scrap, where the conservationists fight for each last piece, and the industry fights for their last pieces, we're able to pull together all of the businesses, all of the Aboriginal communities, the conservation groups, and try to broker deals first based on science, come up with a plan, and then try to broker that to the governments. And we came up with a proposal, the Boreal Conservation Framework, that calls for protecting 50% of all the remaining intact forests left in the Boreal, which would be the largest protected ecosystem anywhere in the world. And we got the industry to agree first. And then we started pushing it on the government. So we were able to kind of generate interest in it, and then all of a sudden it took off. If people are familiar with the flywheel concept, it's like you keep pushing and pushing an idea. There are other explanations to why it just took off all of a sudden. But I like to think of it as the flywheel. It reached the critical mass at a certain point, and the idea really took off. So at this point, right around 2009, what happened was that we got first the Premier of Ontario, and then shortly thereafter the Premier of Quebec to make a commitment to support the boreal framework and to protect 50% of the remaining boreal forest in those provinces. And this is huge. Like I said, Quebec is like 50%, Quebec is about the size of Alaska, so the northern boreal is 70% of Quebec, which is about twice the size of Texas. So protecting 50% of that would be protecting an area the size of Texas, which is about 2 times all the national parks in all the United States. And the thing about working with the industry is that we then have sustainable development on the other parts of the forest, and we do it in an integrated way, planning ahead instead of environmentalists fighting every development and industry fighting every protection. We plan in advance, we integrate it, and we make sure that the native communities share in the benefits. So this is the boreal forest here, and this is the parts that are, intact forest, and this is what was protected when the campaign started in 2005. This is the more fragmented landscape where they've been doing a lot of logging. So in 2005, the dark green areas were all that was protected, and the transition in the slide is slow, and I'm not sure why that is. There we go. So this is the areas that were protected through about 2008. We've gotten all these little parks kind of picking the most spectacular, most important areas, fighting for their protection. And then we got a graphic artist. And then we got, the Premier of Ontario to commit to his 50%, and the Premier of Quebec to commit to 50%. Now we've got to go through the planning process. Well, how did we get this done? Well-connected lobbyists. This is my son with the Premier of Quebec, selling him on this great idea. So shortly thereafter, the Premier of Quebec, he made the commitment, and he pulled together people from industry and people from Aboriginal communities, conservationists in Quebec, and we're now in the process of coming up with a plan called the Plan Nord that will manage these areas, and how well it goes, I don't know yet. That's what I'm working on. The devil, as always, is in the details.